Welcome back to Just Scribble. Recently, Ohuhu reached out to me and asked if they could send me some of their markers to test out and share with you guys. I was already familiar with the Ohuhu brand, and I actually have their alcohol marker set. My mom had bought it and gifted it to me, so I knew that they made nice quality products, and so I said, yes, please send me some markers so that I can test them out, play with them, and share them with you guys. And they have sent me two huge marker sets. So they have sent me their journaling pens, which is a dual-tipped dot marker. And then they have sent me their Pupe. I'm not sure exactly how you're supposed to pronounce it, but it is a brush pen set that is water-based. So they've sent both of these to me to check out and share with you guys, and so we are going to do just that. So let me take everything out of the plastic so it's not so loud, and then we will get started. So here we have the Pupe color markers. They are water-based ink, vibrant colors, paper durability ensured, non-toxic, and it is a set of 60 colors that comes in this beautiful zip case. Let me get this little card off of it. So when you unzip the case, you have all of these beautiful markers. So it did come with, you know, your normal warnings about don't draw on yourself, those types of things. It came with a color chart so that you could see the colors, and then it came with a swatch card as well so that you can swatch them yourself, which I think is amazing. And this is really nice paper. So every one of them is numbered, and then they have a color name as well, which I truly appreciate because I always like to know the names of the colors that I'm swatching. And then it came in this beautiful zipped case, and so you have all 60 markers here in this beautiful case. So this side kind of flips out and stores pens there, then you have pens there, and then you have pens there. I guess markers, not pens. And then it does have a little handle so you can zip it closed and you can carry it by this little handle. And this is 60 glorious colors, and I am so excited. Oh, this is absolutely awesome. So I got that, and then I got their Kamumi journaling pens, which are dot pens or dual-tipped dot pens. So you'll see there it says dual-tipped dot pens. Very similar to the Zig Clean Color Dots. Shuttle Art has a set. There's a few different ones on the market, but these are dual tipped, so you have the tip on one end to make your dot, and then you have your fine liner on the other end. These do not have a number or a color name on them, but it is a set of 24 colors, some of which are metallic. So there's some metallic ones and then non-metallic ones in this set. And it came in this nice zipper bag. So it says dual tip, dot and calligraphy brush, water-based, non-bleed through ink, bullet journal, calligraphy, coloring, and more, non-toxic. So I thought it was a fine liner, but it's actually a really thin brush pen on the other end, which is actually really, really cool. And then of course it came with your little warning card, just like the other one, that tells you not to draw on yourself, not to ingest the ink, those kinds of things. So we have a lot of markers here to share, and I think the best thing to do is to divide this up into a couple of videos. So what I was thinking was we would do one video where we tested a few of the dot pens and a few of the color markers on different paper, just to see how they performed on different paper, if there was bleed through, that kind of thing. And then I think we'll do two separate videos to actually share the colors. So I'll do one with the dot pens and we'll swatch them all out in, where is it? In my swatch book. So I do have this 2024 Sterling ink in one that I have been using as a swatch book. Albeit I'm not finished with this because it takes a long time and I just haven't had the time. But I do swatches in here, and so we will fill out my swatch book and we will do swatches of all the colors in each set. So I'll do one video on this set and one video on that set. So we'll have 3 videos. I think that way it will make the videos not quite so long and you can really see the pens in all of their glory. So what we'll do in this video is we'll do some pen testing and we'll swatch a couple of these out on some different papers and see how they perform. And then in the next video we'll do the dot pens, and then the next video we'll do the color markers, and we'll swatch them all out. So that is what we're going to do. And before I forget, they do have a code for you so that you guys can save if you want to go and buy these pens. So I will have the details of that linked down in the description box down below, so definitely check that out. But let me move this out of the way and let's talk about what we're going to test it on. All right, so I did pull a few things to do some testing on, just so we can kind of see how these pens perform on different paper. So the first thing that I pulled were these B6 blank papers that I bought on Amazon. So this was a pre-punched set of paper in B6 size for your ring planner. And so I thought we would test out on one of these. It's a really nice smooth paper that's a little bit thicker than like Tomoe River paper. And then I pulled out one of my little A6 notebooks that I absolutely adore. These are linked in my Amazon storefront in both A6 and A5 size. They have this really nice grid paper. I just love these little notebooks for on the go, just scratch notes. And so we're going to test on that. I pulled out a Stalogy that I was using for a sort of Bujo planner last year in my standard, and I have some pages left in the back, so we're going to test on Stalogy. And then I pulled out two of my notebooks. I pulled out a 52 GSM Sanzen Tomoe River paper notebook, my Scribbles notebook, which is a lined notebook, and then a Cosmo Air Light notebook. I'm sorry for the glare. I have clear covers on these. I've been testing out clear cover sizes on my notebooks so I can do a video and share it with you guys. That's why this is stuck in here, because I'm trying to keep track of which covers on which notebook. But we're going to also test out on these as well so we can see how it performs on the Sanzen Tomoe River paper and also the Cosmo Air Light paper. So let's start with the B6 paper. This is also in my Amazon storefront, so if you're looking, you can grab that as well. So some of these, like I said, are metallic and some are not. So this blue one has a metallic sheen to it, so we know that one is metallic. This blue one does not, so we will use those two. And we'll do a blue metallic and a blue non-metallic. And then over here, we'll pull, how about we do some purples? So we'll pull a darker purple. This one is deep reddish purple. And then we'll pull a lighter purple. This one is light violet. So we'll do two purples and two blues on each. And we'll do some pen testing so we can see what we think. So this one is the blue. The brush is nice. It is a really thin brush tip, which I really like. And then we have the dots. And the harder you push, the more ink is going to go. And also the bigger the circle. The lighter you push, the smaller the circle. The brush on the metallic one is not as brushy. It's more of a marker tip. It may have to just kind of break down some or break in some to really kind of bend and flex the same way that the non-metallic does. All right, and then we have number 85. And it has a fine tip or a fine liner tip there. Helps if you spell correctly. And then this one is number 142. All right, so there is no feathering on this paper. Paper is very smooth and it wrote nicely on the paper. You can see the metallic sheen. I hope the camera is picking it up. You can see the metallic on the metallic blue, but it's not so metallic that you think that the metallic part like is glittery and it's going to rub off. On the back, we do have a little bit of bleed through on the dart markers and just on the tips of the brush pens. All right, so that was the B6 paper from Amazon. Now we're going to do the same thing on my little notebook. And I'm just going to go through and do the same process. I almost pulled out a Moleskine to show you guys with this, but you guys know the Moleskine paper has had lots of issues, and I couldn't find a good one to use. And so since everything else bleeds through the one that I'm using, I figured it would be a really bad test. All right, so there we have the writing on the front. They performed really well on here. There's no feathering or anything like that. On the back, there's no bleed through from the actual writing. There's just a hint of wanting to bleed through on the ends of the swatches, like the brush pen, and then just a little bit on the dot markers, but only on the blue one, none on the metallic. So in comparison, and there was none on the metallic on the B6 either. So this is a comparison between my Amazon cheap little spiral notebook that I adore and this B6 paper from Amazon. And I will put the GSMs of these down below if I can find them, if I have them, so you guys can see that as well. So now we're going to do a Stalogy. We're just going to flip to the back and do the same thing. I really like these purple colors. They're really pretty. These are very wet pens. I can tell that they're very juicy, but they're writing really well on the different papers. So there we have the same swatches, no feathering. And then on the Stalogy paper, we do have bleed through on the brush tips, but we don't have any bleed through, just like a pinpoint right there, but no bleed through with the dot markers or the fine liner piece. So there's the Stalogy. All right, let me take these out real quick. Okay, and so these are 2 notebooks sold in my shop. So I do have Scribbles notebooks, which are a 7mm college ruled lined notebook, and it comes in 52 GSM Sanzen Tomoe River paper and also Cosmo Air light paper. So you have the Tomoe River paper and the Cosmo Air light paper. And then I also sell blank ones called doodles. So scribbles are lined and doodles are blank, but they are offered in the same paper options. Both are offered in A5 size. So this scribbles one, I have done some pen testing in it. So I did pen testing with 4 different nibs in Bennu fountain pens that are super wet, juicy fountain pens: an Amazon Basic brush pen, a Sharpie S Gel, a Tombow brush pen, a Uniball 1, a Calligraph, and then a dot marker, which I think is a Maru dot marker. And on the back, you can see that there is ghosting, a little bit of ghosting, but there is no bleed through in this notebook. Now I do know, and I do have a video coming to talk to you guys about this, and I do have a blog post about this, but there has been a lot of inconsistency with the Sanzen Tomoe River paper this year across all brands. Sadly, none of us were unaffected. Every single one of us was affected by it. So in some planners and notebook pages are ghosting more or are more prone to bleed through. It can vary book to book, and it can vary page to page. I'm using this scribble book because I had tested in it and the paper had performed nicely, so I thought it would be a good test for this video. But we have the blue. It writes nicely on this paper. It's very smooth. And then we have metallic blue. Number 85. All right, so there we have the dot markers and the dual brush tip. Really pretty, no feathering. And then on the back, we do have ghosting, which you would expect because it's really thin Tomoe River paper. but we don't have full bleed through. We actually have less bleed through than we did on the other samples. We just have some pinpoint right here and a little pinpoint right there, but it is mostly just ghosting. So in comparison, so to compare to the Stalogy, this batch of the Tomoe River paper is actually performing better than the Stalogy paper. There's less bleed through. And then we are going to do a test in Cosmo Air Light. I don't think I've done any pen tests in this one yet. No. So we're going to turn to the last page and we're going to do the same thing. So smooth on this paper. I love Cosmo Air Light, which is being replaced by B7 paper. And I'll be sharing more on that soon. Or soon-ish. But I just love writing on it. It's so smooth. It's so much fun. Alright, so there we have our writing sample. There's a teeny tiny bit of feathering along the edge of this swatch, but not on this one. So I don't know if it's me, like how I brushed it, or if it's the actual reaction to the paper, but there's a little tiny bit right there. And then on the back, you have some ghosting, but you have just the tiniest little bleed through pinpoint right there. So they performed the best on the Cosmo Air Light paper, as you can see there. And then next best was actually on this Tomoe River paper, where we had the ghosting and just minimal bleed through. And then we have the Stalogy, where we had more bleed through. And then we have our B6 paper. It performed really well on this paper as well, but this is thicker than the other three papers. And then we have my little A6 notebook, which is in between this and the Stalogy as far as the performance. So that is my little share of pen testing. Overall, I like these. They do bleed through a little bit more than I had anticipated compared to other markers that I have. But let's do a little comparison while I have you to a couple other similar markers. That way we have a really good comparison. So I don't have exact color matches, but I have some that are close. So I pulled out 2 blue Zig clean color dots, 1 plain one and 1 metallic. I pulled out 2 purple Primrosea brush pens, 2 purple Amazon Basic brush pens, or dual brush pens, and then 2 Tombos that are in like pink shades because I didn't have a purple handy. And then I also have these Maru dot markers, so we'll dot with those as well, just so we have some comparisons. So I'm gonna start back with the same, in the same order, and just do it a little bit faster and do 2 at a time. So I'm gonna do Zig. I think this one is called Denim. Pretty sure. Somewhere on, yeah, Denim. And then Primrosea. I use these a lot in my planner spreads, so I definitely wanted to compare. And then we have Amazon. And then this is 772 from Tombow. And 757. And then these are my little Maru dots. One of them is in standard purple and the other one is in powder pink. So we'll just do some dots. All right. So when we turn the page, the zig blue one almost wants to bleed through right there. And then the Maru down here at the bottom, but nothing else is bleeding through on my little A6. And then on the B6 paper, the same thing. We have a little bit of bleed through on the heavier dots on the zig, and then a little bit of bleed through on the dots with the Marus. So up here, this is the Ohuhus, and then Zigs, Primrosea, Amazon, Tombow, and the Marus. So you can see comparatively. And now I'm going to do the Stalogy real quick, and then I'll do my two notebooks at the same time. So we have Zig. I'll speed through this so you guys don't have to painstakingly watch me do this. All right, there we have all of those. Interestingly enough, on the Stalogy, the Tombows and the Primroseas and the Amazons, the grid actually didn't pick up the color. Like you can see the grid through there, whereas on these you can't. On the Ohuhus you can't. And then when you flip it over, same thing. A little bit of bleed through on that Zig denim and a little bit on the purple Maru, but the rest is just shadowing, no bleed through. Now let's do these two. So we'll do these at the same time. Let me make some space. So this is the 52 GSM Sanzen Tomoe River paper, and this is the Cosmo Air Light paper. All right, so we have tested them all in the exact same order that we did on the other papers. So this is the 52 GSM Sanzen Tomoe River paper. So there is a tiny bit of bleed through on those Marus and almost like a tiny bit on that denim Zig, but the rest of them are just ghosting, which is what I would expect. It actually performed better on this paper once again than it did, if I can get to it, on the Stalogy paper. So the Stalogy paper had more bleed through, but mostly just ghosting, less bleed through, mostly just ghosting. And then the Cosmo Air Light paper. So we have no actual bleed through, just barely wanting on that purple Maru, none at all on the Zigs or any of the others. So the Cosmo Air Light did the best in all of the papers in the testing. But that is my little swatch comparison. There's more bleed through on these than I had wanted or expected, but it's very, very minimal on the Cosmo Air Light, which I adore this paper, so that makes me really, really happy. And it's just barely wanting to do it on the Sanzen Tomoe River paper, which is what I use for most of my planners and notebooks. So that's a good thing. But I did expect that it would perform a little bit better, especially like on the Stalogy paper. I thought that the markers would perform a little bit better. The dot markers did pretty well, but these dual brush pens bled more. I thought they'd be more like the Amazon basics as far as having no bleed through, just ghosting. But I do like the colors. Like the colors are super vibrant and really, really pretty. And it is a huge selection, and I will still use them even if there's a little bit of bleed through. I will use them for planners and journals. I will use them in my ring planner. I will use them in coloring books, all of the things. So it won't deter me from actually using them, but I was hopeful that there would be no bleed through. Now the dot markers did pretty well, and that's the one that actually says no bleed through. So it says water-based non-bleed through ink. These don't actually say non-bleed through, they just say water-based ink. And so nowhere in here does it actually say no bleed through, but I did expect it to be a little bit better. But overall, I'm happy with these, and I'm still going to swatch them out, and I'm still going to use them. But I wanted to do a little comparison so you guys could see how they did in comparison to other brands that you might already have or be familiar with on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different papers. But that's my first video sharing these Ohuhu markers and pens. So we shared the dual tipped dot pen, which has a dot on one end and then a thin brush pen on the other. And then I shared the water-based Pupe marker, which has a brush on one end and a fine liner on the other end. Like I said, I will have 2 more videos so we can check out all the beautiful colors. But that's my video. If you have any questions or comments, please don't hesitate to put them down below and I will definitely get back with you. Give me a thumbs up if you liked this video. Make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss future videos. And don't forget to just scribble.